Yes. All right. So, can I ask who are the pitchers in this room? Pitchers, one pitcher. No, you are a pitcher. Yes. Excluding the pitchers in the next panel, who are the pitchers in this room? 2 people. Okay. So, can you tell me what you think leveraging market this panel is about? What are you expecting to hear? Yes, what do you want to hear them say? Yes, you've cracked it in the first 3 words. What's the benefit? Forget the rest of the sentence. What's the benefit? You got it exactly. You're bang on. Your art of pitching is perfect. You're going to figure out what the benefit is. Now, the panel has been preparing all morning, but when I heard them, they didn't actually say anything about the benefit. So this is a hint to the panel that the benefit should be very clearly stated. So because we have everyone that's really important already in the room, and many other people, most people away from it, we're going to start now. So may I please ask the distinguished panel to come on stage to introduce themselves and to do their thing. That's the benefit. Thank you. Okay. We're kind of looking at half an hour roughly, but we can see how it goes. If you guys need extra time. Okay. You can stay for an hour here. I know. That's why. You can leave off just from there. The panel has only half an hour because after that, the benefit kind of decreases a bit. So, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christian Jesdic from Italy. I'm an independent producer, and I'm also vice president of Cartoon Italia, that is the National Association of Animation Producers in Italy. And I'm also member of Animation Europe, that actually is the association of the all European Association for Animation. And let's just make a quick presentation of everyone, and then we start our panel.
Thank you very much. I'm Sarah Baines. I think I've met many of you. I wear various different hats. My background is that I was a commissioner for many years, working on projects both in the children's field and animation, but I also had other remits, including news and current affairs, and I worked on a couple of the very big UK entertainment shows that were daily. So I was looking at creativity on a daily basis, 2 hours a day, live TV, get it out there. I've also set up 2 channels in the Middle East, and I've done a lot of work across all areas. What I'm doing currently that's probably more interest to you is that I work with the Children's Media Conference. I'm the vice chair of the advisory committee, and as such I take a group of 70 companies to Kidscreen, and what we're doing there is empowering them to go out there, and what we do is help them to bring back really big imports. So we'll get to that when we talk about the benefits, because the benefits of going to market are something that we've had to hone and craft with the teams that we take out there. So, and we go to MIPCOM, we go to most of the markets. I can talk about that later.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Khalid. I work with Animation Express. I look after their syndication and distribution. What we essentially do is we take Indian content and we try to pitch it in international market. MIP TV, BIP Junior, animation or live action, any of the markets. So that's actually what we do, essentially.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nitin Kalra. I head the business in India as well as the Middle Eastern markets for Animation International. For a lot of people who don't know what Animation International does, we don't produce any animation, as our name says. We actually work with IP owners and take their IPs into licensing and merchandising. The biggest success story that we've actually curated in the last 3 decades of the company is a brand that we all know as Doraemon in India and Doraemon in Japan and most part of the world. My company has been representing that character across all areas of revenue generation, across Asia, Middle East, and the CIS regions. Besides this, we also do a lot of other businesses like syndication, like I said, merchandising. We do a lot of events, and we mentor a lot of companies in terms of how do you go about leveraging your IPs specifically from the startup stage, because a lot of us really think about these ancillary sources of revenue much later in the scheme of things. So hopefully we'll be able to share some light on what we can do in the ancillary revenue streams as well. I think what we'll do is we'll start off with Christian giving some of the pointers about the animation business, and then we'll take it up one at a time.
Thank you so much. So before to start analyzing and trying to understand with you all together how to leverage this industry and the market, we want to start from where the market is in this moment. So I don't want to bother you too much, but I've just written 13 pages, no, just 1 page of data on the market. So I just want to read it to be sure to give you the exact number. So the total value of global animation in the world this year was 254 billions in 2017. And there is a projection of 270 billions by 2020. So US dollars. Yeah, this is a good point. I haven't told because normally these data are intended to be in dollars, but yeah, dollars. So 270 billions of euros, it's a huge perspective for our market that is not only staying there or going down, but is growing a lot. The demand of animation so is growing because of many reasons, especially for, just in a nutshell, for the reason is connected screens that are everywhere nowadays, and they are growing day by day. The internet connections is drastically falling down. To be connected with internet is everywhere, day by day. It costs very less. Also here in India, if I don't mind, there is a new carrier from, I think from 1 year or GIG, something, Geo, yeah. And I was like very impressed when I see what they are offering and for how very, very small money, and they are offering a huge connectivities and they are covering most of the territories. And so for us producers and creators and authors, this is a very sensitive data we should keep in mind. And more, do not forget that augmented reality and VR, all this business, are also growing day by day. There is a rapid advancement in technology. Basically has made animation, VFX, and gaming, because also gaming is a big part of this business, to be available to all the masses, okay? The market that we are going to discuss now with my friends here are exactly the places where all this business happens. So I want to point out just a single peculiarity of our market, that production work is becoming global because of few points that are very relevant and that we have to keep in mind. And these points are the tax incentives. Also, the regional low labor costs and lower computing costs also, which put pressure on companies to reduce costs and set up facilities using these tax advantages or low-cost regional end funds. So I personally think, and this is what the market is showing everywhere, that this is a model which is growing a lot and push the producers to being able to produce more and more, with a lot of helps from different sources. And now that I gave you some data, I want just briefly to introduce you to a project that I'm personally following in a region of Italy, just to let you understand what's happening in our market and in our industry. This region of Italy is a small region, and it's a region of the south of Italy. It's called Sardinia. It's an island. It's a big island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. And basically what's going on is that the region itself is making a huge investment to start an animation pole there in Sardinia. And the region have put like 7 million euros just to start on the table to create a training center for young people to become 2D animators, to grow as authors, to grow as music composers, to grow into all the fields of our industry. And the model is very easy to be understood. Basically, the region is offering for 5 years for free the studios, and all the facilities that are in the studio will be free for 5 years. And also the region is taxing the production, the personal, the employers' tax costs for other 5 years. This is another sign that animation business, VFX, and also video games is going to have a very relevant role in the development of these depressed areas of the south of the Europe, like this region in Italy, and to give a lot of new opportunities to a young generation to grow with a good work that can put them into an international platform. Okay, so this is briefly what's happening from my side. I myself am an independent producer with my company that is called BQ Entertainment. And also with my studio, I'm going to put my studio in this location to take advantages from this situation. But this situation is open to everyone in the world. So even people from India, from China, from Europe, from US, everyone is very welcome and invited to come in this location and put the studio. So this can become not only a possibility for the locals, but also an international platform. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think the two things that came up in that, one was the number, the huge number, and the fact that it's increasing. So when we're talking about the benefits and leveraging benefits for markets, it's not a declining market. What I'm seeing is it's a changing market. So I think as we go down the panel, what we're going to be doing is talking about how it's changing, how it's morphing, and particularly how you, from India, can harness that change and get in there and start doing things differently, because there's a huge seismic change. So the other thing that you mentioned was that the Italian government are putting money in to creating somewhere that is going to be a centre of excellence. You've got lots of centres of excellence here. And going back to the real benefit of how you go to market and what you're saying, something that we were talking about earlier, I'm sure we'll dig into a bit more, is creativity is wonderful. It's great, and you can create wonderful things. If you don't get them out the door, somebody else will get there first. It will become obsolete in the current market. So what you need to do is create a good business plan, work it through and know what you're doing. So before you go to market, why are you going there? Who are you going to meet? What are you going to do? Because if at the end of the day you don't get the investment, you don't get whatever it is that you need, then you're not going to get your creativity out of the door and you'll be frustrated. So we can dig into that a bit more later. Something else we were talking about is the mentorship, because you're going to want to go out there and meet the right people and say the right things. So it's things such as the last 2 days where you've been able to get multiple viewpoints. We've probably all been saying different things because we all come from very different backgrounds. Listen to us all and then know what you're doing. Maybe find one mentor that you can follow through with who can help you go to market being really professional, really clear about what you want, but also really open. And we can get more into, it's meeting people, it's talking to people, it's being comfortable with your project so that you can talk to people in the lift, you can talk to people anywhere and work out how to engage them without selling. So I'll leave it at that, and because we're hoping to get into more of a discussion. I'll pass it down to you.
So I completely agree with what you just said. You really need to understand the market before you go to pitch. You really need to understand, we all are creatives. We all tend to get diverted with our creativeness and we go around pitching stuff that, so we're really adamant that we do not want to change. I saw a few content creators over here who are very adamant about that. But I really want to urge you all to be a little more open to change, a little more understanding of the market. That is the key. I really feel that's the key in leveraging markets. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think what he said is important, that you need to be a little more open about your thoughts. But at the same time, it's also important that you can't just go out there with such an open mind that if X person tells you that, you know what, you need to change this, you say, okay, I'm going to do it right away. And you meet the next person and the next person says, no, what you're doing is wrong, change it this way. Because at the end of the day, what happens is what you come out with is a very confused product. What some people did here in the last couple of days that we've seen is, and I think I can speak for everybody here, including our friends here on the front row, is that many of you actually came up to us, gave your presentations, and when we gave you feedback, your perception or your pitches on every single table were different. Because you were going and saying, oh, maybe this guy told me to change this. Okay, to the next pitch, next buyer, let me go and say that I'm going to do this, right? So by the time you actually finished all the 10 or 12 tables, you actually had a very different product altogether from what you came here for. And that is a real problem. Because a lot of time, the buyer actually wants to know how confident are you about your own product. A lot of you actually were very confused by the end of it. Actually, today, a lot of you all were very confused. Because maybe you all got some different feedbacks yesterday, which you tried to incorporate in the way you want to present yourself today. And by the time you came with your products today, and we were like, okay, we didn't know what you were saying, because you yourself didn't know what you were saying. So if you're very confident of what you've created, have that faith, go out and be open to tweaking it a little bit to adjust to the market requirements. But don't go and say, I'm going to change the entire concept just because somebody told me to. Okay? Maybe that concept is not working for them. Fair enough. There are other buyers who may be interested. And creativity, as we all know, is very subjective. Right? I mean, I may love something, you would hate it. But that doesn't mean that there's no market for what I love and there's no market for what you love. So I may not like it, but there's always another person who's waiting for it. So yes, patience, I think, is another thing that we all have stressed on from time to time. Yeah, unfortunately, there's also a practical side to it as to how long do you need to have patience, and obviously it costs a lot of money to have patience as well. But patience is obviously very important in the game as well. You can't expect that I've created something, I've come to a pitch like this, and by the end of 2 days when I leave from here, I have a check in my pocket. That doesn't happen. It takes a long time for you to nurture that. Even for us, if we've heard, let's say, 10 ideas, we've probably shortlisted 2. We would meet you again, we would interact with you again, and sleep over it. For all you know, tomorrow morning we wake up and we don't have that idea in our head. What do we do? Or maybe 10 days later, we wake up and we say, hey, something was there. Let's call this guy. So you need to have faith in what you've created and don't mess it up too much in your head. I think that's very important from a creativity point of view, and they'll be able to add a little more to that, that element as well.
Yeah. What you said is totally, it's very important for creators, authors, but also for producers. It's very important. Creators and producers are different often. Sometimes it's the same, but often are different kind of works. For example, when you are a creator, and it's very, I don't want to advise you, to suggest you to go directly and making the selling of your project to a broadcaster or to anyone, for example, to a distributor or to a licensor or to anyone. It's much better, or at least it's often better, that you find a producer that will take your own IP and that lets your IP to grow in the proper way, specifically to avoid what he was saying, because your property grown and born from your idea. And your idea is the center, is the point of your IP. So it is not good that your IP becomes the idea of someone else just because he feels that would be better in this way or the other way. So if you give your IP to any producer that feels that your idea is good, and that producer will start letting your IP growing, it will be the producer or distributor itself to go and to make the deal directly with the buyers or with the broadcaster. And nowadays, we were discussing before on this specific topic, also the work of the producer, it is not only to be on the figures, on the budget and financing side, but it's also very important that the producer will be able to preserve the nature of the IP. Because whatever you heard today since you was pitching your IPs, is that everyone gives you a different opinion, different ideas, etc. This happens much more whenever you go to pitch it to any broadcaster. The broadcasters are often even worse than the buyers are. So the work of the producer is also to be able to deal properly with the broadcaster and to try to preserve the real nature of the IPs, whatever the broadcaster says. Of course, it's clever, it's important to listen the advices of everyone, and especially the broadcaster, because they know what they are saying, but you creator and the producers should be strong enough to say also no sometimes, because my idea is not going in the direction you are advising me. But keep in mind that if you say no, you have to be ready to justify the no, to give very strong reasons. And this have another implication, that whenever you are making a pitch, you must be very keen on what you are pitching, and you must be ready to answer any question. This is very important, because often the pitch I've heard, not specifically here, but in general, normally they are not exactly ready to be pitched. So it's much better to spend more time in the developing phase than just, throwing the IP and the idea on the market just because you are eager to start doing something. It's much better to let the IP growing properly.
So thank you. I think what I want to say is, just in one period of my life, I counted up, I'd had 40,000 pitches, which seemed a ridiculous number, so I did a double check. So I have seen so many, and I know what floats to the top. So when we're talking about, you want to know what the benefits of leveraging the market are, you've got to be able to leverage it by knowing really what your project is, by knowing it from the heart. And I know there have been people, and I won't look at them, who had feedback that they needed to present slightly differently. So we're doing it with a piece of paper, and I'm going, rip it up. And it came across so much better, because when you know it from the heart, I can pick it up. As a commissioner and somebody that may be putting money in, I'm putting my name on it, I've got to go to various different people to pass it on. I've got to understand what's on that piece of paper, what's coming through from you to me. Can I pick it up, and am I running that program, that animation in my head? And can I see a child watching it? And what I'm thinking is that child sitting there with a button pressing a different channel? So to leverage, going back to your point, what's the benefit to leveraging the markets? I think you've got to know who you're talking to. You've got to know what they want. You've got to, if you were going to somewhere like Kidscreen or CMC, you've got to have done your homework, looked at people online to be able to go up and talk to them in the corridor. As a former commissioner, please don't sell to us, because like we all are here, there's jet lag, you've had 30 or 40 meetings already that day, you can't remember who you've seen. It's fine to give them a card and say, I'd love to talk to you later, may I take your card? And then you can follow up. I'd say also be really succinct. If you're working into the English market, check that the language that you're putting in doesn't sound formulaic. Because a lot of people that work in different markets make it very business-like, and it doesn't come across with the right impact. Everybody's very busy. They're normally reading things on their phone. If you're going to leverage that market and move it up, you want to get the right partners quite quickly. And I've talked to quite a few of you about getting things out of the door, getting your business sorted out by perhaps starting local, finding out who those partners are that you need. Go to the markets and find out how you might be able to work with other people. Go and talk to people here. So leverage your local market so that you can then leverage the other market.
The other aspect that I think is really important, I want to talk to the buyers now. I really feel that all of us should come together and mentor this raw talent. And I was speaking to a few of the sellers over here, and they were really excited of all the feedback that they got in the last 2 days. And so what we essentially do, what we started doing recently in Animation Express is we are mentoring a lot of small studios, a lot of these raw studios who don't know how to pitch, what person to meet, who's the mentor. So we're trying to mentor them, and we're trying to, hopefully in the next 2 days, we might have a deal with the OTT platform, a leading OTT platform in Asia. So that's what we're doing. So that's what I'm saying. If you guys can be a little open to the buyers and the producers, when people come to pitch, help them out, and don't just shut them down.
Just very quickly to add to that, when you're pitching, when you're practicing your pitch, get into the mind of the buyer. You probably need 3 seats. This is something I teach. You need 3 seats. You need you're the pitcher. You've spent years working on it, and you're desperate to get the idea out, and it comes as a wall of information, and we're all standing there going, what was that? We missed it. We didn't understand it. Don't quite get it. They're passionate, but it's another, I don't know what, bear toy, whatever it might be. I didn't get the heart of it. Really understand what do they need to hear, and listen actively when they give you the feedback. Then go into the observer position. What do I need to do to shift this person over so that they can hear what I'm saying, and we start building a relationship? And I'm going to say, again, relationship is key, because if you can start building that relationship, you'll be able to pick the phone up, drop them an email, meet them at the next market. It will take probably 2 years to start building it.
A little more than that.
One point that I want to add to what Sarah said. A lot of us actually, when we think of pitching and going to these markets, and we think that we'll be able to get a deal immediately, we're always trying to show the buyer that my product is very good for your market, right? All of us in this room want to be the next Disney. We all want to have the next Mickey Mouse, the next Tom and Jerry, the next Doraemon, and so on and so forth. But these products, these brands have not become the brands that they are today overnight. right? It's taken them years and years and years of effort to actually get in from one market to the other. And what Sarah made a point was very clear, that first try and get a success of yourself in your own market. Many of you today and yesterday that we spoke to, they've always come back and said, oh, this will work for the global audience. Now, I just wanted to ask them one question, which I actually didn't. I thought it would be very rude, but on the panel, I think I can take that liberty to ask, what is the proof of concept? Have you proven this in your own market? Have you had a success story? If you've had a success in your head, that doesn't mean that you can come and make a statement that this is going to be widely accepted by a global audience. Because there is no parameter for you to judge or make a statement like that my IP is great for the global audience, right? You may aspire to make something which is going to work for the globe, but every market is different, right? What's going to work in Italy is not going to work in America. What's going to work in America is not going to work in India, right? And vice versa, and several parts of Asia. We work very closely in the Asian continent, and I can tell you that the choice of content that works in an Indonesia is very different from a Malaysia, and Malaysia is very different from even a tiny country like Singapore. Okay? What's going to work in the other markets is not necessarily going to work for you. So there is nothing, and I will underline this, there is nothing that works in the globe. There's no IP that is a super success across the world. Even a Mickey Mouse, there are markets where it does not work, right? There are markets where even internationally recognized brands don't work. It's as simple as that. So get rid of this whole thing in your head that my IP is for the global audience. There's nothing like a global audience out there.
Yeah. Thank you. This is very true what you said. And once I met in MIP TV or MIPCOM, I don't remember, the producer of Peppa Pig, that I know that is also known here in India, right? Yes. Yeah. And suddenly in Europe too, Peppa Pig became a very strong success like 5-6 years ago, when Annalisa Liberi from Rai Ragazzi, is the public broadcaster, bought this property, and they launched it in Italy, and it became a crazy success. But you know how many years the producer took to bring Peppa Pig to the success, knocking every door and trying to produce it? 10 years. 10 years of very strong work in trying to convince someone that Peppa Pig was a good production. So 10 years, it's a long time. But apart of this, I want to say something else about how to leverage the market that is very important. Because this is a market, we have to monetize. Monetization, it's a mantra for producers. It's a very important thing. So whenever you think an IP, a production, nowadays you should keep in mind a very important part of the production, that is licensing and merchandising. So when you think a production today, you must keep in mind these two words, and to understand where, and especially if your IP has some licensing or merchandising potential. Because if these requirements, because I would call it a requirement, it is not satisfied, well, this would be a problem today, especially if you want to go on the mainstream. Of course, nowadays with connected screens, there are a lot of opportunities to eventually even freely distribute your contents, or to being distributors yourself of your contents. But the penetration of the traditional broadcaster, the linear broadcasters, and somehow OTT are becoming like linear broadcasters in some aspect, it is necessarily connected to this concept of monetization. So keep in mind it, it's very important.
Okay. Hello? Yeah. Okay, so before we move on to the questions, audience questions, I want to ask Sarah a question. I know. I'm going to ask you. So you've heard a lot of pitches all your life. What, according to you, is the right pitch? I'm sure a lot of buyers here, sellers here, would like to know.
Keep it simple. Make it real. So, as I said, I need to be able to see what it is in my head. Even if it's written down, there's no graphics, I need to be able to visualize it. I can feel whether it's a 5-minute or a 10 minutes. If you get that wrong, I can feel that. Too much, it's great at a further stage, but that first pitch has got to be engaging, inspiring, it's got to lift you up. We work in kids' TV. It's got to be dynamic. You've got to believe in your project. And you've got to, I know we mentioned the business plan before. I've got to know that the whole thing stacks up. The kids are going to want it, but in terms of what's the benefit of leveraging the market, you're going out there to try and get somebody else, another partner, because you haven't got the resources to fully execute what you want to execute. So who is it you're going to go to? Pitch the idea so I can understand why this is a good one. So, Joan and I were there together. I can remember the weather. I can remember everything. We were there when they first pitched Peppa Pig. She had the money, I didn't. And the excitement and the frisson in the room and outside and holding the tea. I was holding the bags for the guys because I'm going, I can't buy it. They're going, who do we go with? What should we do? But the excitement, because it was so simple. They'd done a teaser, which was so simple. And we were talking about it the other night, that we all knew why it was going to work globally, and that episode still works globally. You can show it anywhere in the world, if you can have a pig in there, but you can show it anywhere in the world because it's about jumping in a puddle. It's about splashing. It's about children having fun. That's all you need to know. So when you get overcomplicated, back to that triangle. I'm here, I'm tired, have I had my coffee? I've had 25 things today. I can't take it all in. So if you're pitching in a market, keep it so I can follow the narrative and I can understand the business imperative.
So,
should we go on?
We have 5 minutes. We're already 30. So
Open
if you
for
want closing
questions,
comments or questions, as you like. You can.
Open for questions, actually.
Any questions?
Before you finish, would you just like to make a recommendation that, depending on what they want to do, which market they should think of going to, what they should do before, what they should do during, and what they should do after?
That seems to come this way. There are lots of markets. Kidscreen is the North American market. That so look at where you think you will best go with your project. Kidscreen is huge. It costs a lot of money. We would probably say that's a relationship building one. You're probably not going to go there and get the money probably for a couple of years. You're going to go out there, get some interest, build a relationship and move on. There's MIP and MIPCOM. MIP now is there, and there is a junior presence. It's quite good because people aren't quite as busy, because most people go in the October where you've got MIP Junior. That's a very good place to go and see what else is there, because at Kidscreen you can't see as much of what's on. So going there, then there are other more local markets, and as I mentioned, I'm the vice president of the Children's Media Conference, which is held in Sheffield in July, and we're talking to Biren about trying to get more presence from this part of the world. And that isn't a market as such, it's more of a conference, but you would get to know a lot of people. I'm going to be honest and say not the North Americans. And then there's Annecy, there's Cartoon, are there various other ones that you can think of?
Also there is, if I can just mention the Cartoon Springboard that will be held in a month? Next week in Valenciennes. Yeah, next week is too close now, but you can consider for the next editions, because Cartoon Springboard is open to the new creators. So those people, students or not, authors, whoever you are, you can pitch your new IPs to the broadcasters. And this is a very rare occasion where, without having you know, too many connection directly, you or someone you knows, you can pitch directly to the audience, and this is very important. Because also, it is in the mandate of the public broadcaster especially to found new authors and new talents. This also you should keep in mind, because it's not very well known as a thing, but it is a reality. And for public broadcasters, I don't know here, but normally this is a very important point.
It's great, suggesting all these things, but how does the person here get there? I'm sure Khalid can talk about Bitcoin, how to get there and stuff like that. I'm sure you guys have, because it's easy to say all that. Many of the people are not aware.
Sorry, yeah, so what we essentially do is we take content creators, pitches, we take there and we try to sell it on their behalf. I understand it's expensive to travel all the way to Cannes and do the registration. So that's where we try to bridge the gap. There are many, many markets. ACE, that's happening in South Korea, ACE, Discorp, Dubai, ATF. So that's what we do, and we are open to any kind of help.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as the closing comments from the panel, we want to be interactive and give them a big hand instead of them saying anything else. You now know that it costs approximately about 275,000 at the least to reach its market. You've heard that you need to be at 52 markets in the year. So if you do the math, it doesn't cost that much. And there are solutions like we just heard in the last comment where other people can go to the market for you. But at Bangalore, at the Bengaluru GFX and the Bengaluru B2B, we will continue to bring the markets to you. So you can pay us only half of that and be happy. Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. A big hand to the panel. And we are going to now energize everyone in this room. We've kept an amazing finish to the Bengaluru B2B. You are going to